What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Press X Podcast, episode 75, your weekly podcast for gaming news and opinions, coming at you each and every Monday at noon Eastern. I am Kevin McManus, and with me, nobody. Kellen not here, Nick not here. You might be asking why. The answer, E3 2017 is happening actually right now as I record this. So basically, I didn't want to have a podcast go up at the normal Monday time because E3 was happening. I wanted to get the E3 news, etc., etc. So we're giving this instead. And what I will be doing is basically reviewing the conferences. So at this time right now, EA is gone, Microsoft's gone, Bethesda's gone, Ubisoft's gone, Sony has gone, and then I will record Nintendo reactions and everything tomorrow. And they'll be at the end of this video, obviously. So that's where I am currently. I do want to sort of apologize for, I wanted to do a live stream. I put up a video, some of you may have saw it, that detailing the times of the conferences, and I wanted to live stream our reactions to the conference. And it did not work. My internet is a real bunch of trash, and it could not handle streaming at the same time. I got close, but it was still to the point where the video would buffer every, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. It would pause for half a second and then keep going, and then pause for half a second and then keep going. I was like, nobody's going to want to watch this or anything. It happened when I was recording it too, to put it up later. So sorry about that. I got to watch it from the comfort of my couch, and with the exception of Sony. And so I wanted the live stream to work. I'm going to work on it. I want to get that working for future conferences so that I can have live reaction. So I'm sorry I couldn't get that working. But anyway, basically, what I'm going to be doing here is I'm not going to go over all the things that they announced and everything. We'll probably do that next week on the podcast, not go over everything, but talk about some of the announcements that we liked and things like that. This is strictly talking about the press conferences as a whole and kind of rating them. And I'm going to be talking about 3 things I liked and 3 things that I didn't like. Some of these were easy to find things that I didn't like. Some of them a little bit more difficult. And I'm going to be doing that and then give the press conferences a letter grade, C, C+, B, B+, A, A-, things like that for how I thought that they were. And I do want to put that it's important to note every company is in a different position right now, right? Sony is in a completely different spot than Microsoft, and Nintendo's in a completely different spot than Bethesda, and what they need to show to have a quote-unquote good conference is different from each other. Just showing, these are not just the games. This is the presentation. This is what they needed to show versus what they showed. Things like that. So you might think some of my ratings are low or some of my ratings are high, but take into account I'm not putting them against each other so much. I am comparing them to what my expectation of a good show should have been from that company, as well as comparing it a little bit to last year. But last year's E3 was insane, as we are realizing, I think, from this E3, which is leaving people a little bit sour because it's not last year. And I think people need to realize last year was an anomaly. Like, that was the craziest E3, arguably, ever. So let's hop right into it, right? EA started out the show on a Saturday, which was a little weird. And EA's show was good. I liked it better than last year's show. They have a problem, right? Their problem is sports. So this is my first negative. Sports has to be at EA's show. It's unfortunate, and it takes up a bunch of their time. And that's kind of a personal thing. I'm sure somebody out there likes the sports segment. It's not me. However, I will say I did like that they kept it a little bit, actually a lot of it compared to a lot of the years, shorter. I think it was last year's EA conference where they had like the camera switching between different parts of the world, and they were showing like they had like celebrities and they'd have soccer stars come out and talk, and none of that happened. That's good. That's actually a good thing. But overall, yeah, you had the sports, and you had that the sports segment of EA is always a low point, and unfortunately probably always going to be a negative to me. Now, on a plus, I know how I talked about games weren't going to be a giant factor in this, but if you have a big surprise or something that got me really excited, you will get a mention, and this is my first plus of EA, A Way Out. This game was a super surprise to me. Arguably, I don't know about overall, definitely my biggest announcement for the first half of E3. This was done by the team that did Brothers, which for people who don't know, Brothers is a single-player game where half the controller controls one character and half the controller controls another. And when you start out the game, you're real confused. It's very hard to maneuver and everything because it's confusing. It's like playing the piano. Your hands are doing different things. But later in the game, when you figure it all out, you're able to do like boss fights and puzzles and all this stuff second nature. It's super easy to do. And it kind of evolved with, the gameplay evolved with your ability to do this, and it was really cool. And it's sort of a co-op game in that respect. This game exclusively co-op. It is split screen only. It will have online split screen or couch co-op, which is a rare thing nowadays, unfortunately, and I love me a good co-op game. And it's basically a prison break game. You and the other character are breaking out of prison, and you'll be going through different scenarios at different times. So you could be in completely different areas, but it's still split screen, and then you might meet up, and then you might split apart again. Or you'll be doing something like one person's driving and the other person's shooting out of the back of their car. I think it's a really cool concept. I trust the studio behind Brothers to be able to do this because Brothers is a fantastic game, and it just took me by surprise. So definitely looking forward to A Way Out. My next minus is going to be the YouTube stuff. I understand that YouTubers are a huge piece of promotion, and EA realizes that, and that's good and that's great. But having them speak on stage and host part of their conferences and stuff is not the best idea. Some of them are great, some of them are not so great, and I think it hurts as a whole when one of the not so greats show up, right? And there is one of them had a problem. The teleprompter went out, from what I understand, and that puts you in a really hard spot when that happens. And that's not his fault. I mean, we all saw, what was it, Peter Jackson, who came out, and the teleprompter went out, and he was just like, I can't do this, and he walked off the stage. That stuff happens. But in general, I think having somebody who's more professional in that area doing the hosting would probably be a better idea. And this won't be the first time we talk about hosting problems throughout E3 in general. My next plus is going to be the Anthem reveal. I did not expect the BioWare new IP, and it's cool that it showed up. That was another big surprise for me. They did the see the gameplay at Microsoft stage, and I wrote these as I was watching them. I didn't go back and edit these, so I've seen the gameplay now, so my take on this reveal is a little bit skewed now that I've seen the gameplay, but it was a cool announcement that I didn't see coming. Next up, a negative, the Star Wars, man. I love Star Wars, don't get me wrong, but playing a full match was a little taxing. I was cool 15, 20 minutes in, and then the fatigue started to show. I wanted to see more maps. I wanted to see more characters. I wanted to see more, and when you play one match like that, it can feel a little samey when, A, you don't know all the mechanics of the game or anything because the game's not out yet, and B, you're in the same map, you're seeing the same characters over again. For an exciting reveal, I would have rather, seen 3 minutes in every map than 20 minutes in one map. That's just my personal, personal preference. But my final plus for EA is going to be Star Wars addressing the issues. This was awesome, and I'd like to see more developers and publishers do this. They came out on stage and they're like, we didn't have a single player. Our bad. Here's a single player. Our game DLC wasn't free. The season pass was kind of not a great idea. No season pass. DLC is free. It felt like they were pro-consumer. It felt like they were for the gamer, and I think that's great. And that their whole announcement for that, and having the voice actress come out on stage and announce all these things and stuff was really just fantastic. So, an applause for EA for doing that and addressing the issues and being honest about it, not, I don't want to say hiding it, but not doing it in a showboaty way, doing it in an apologetic way, I guess is the best way to put it. So overall, still, I give EA a C+. C+, very solid conference. I enjoyed it more than last year's, but there was still some things I would have ironed out, and it has the issue of I'm not a giant fan of sports games. If I was a big fan of sports games, maybe it would be higher up. Next up was Microsoft. Oh boy, was it Microsoft. And Microsoft needed to knock it out of the park here because they have their back against the wall more than anybody else. PlayStation just sold 60 million. Microsoft won't even release numbers with how they're doing. They have a console to reveal. They have no announced exclusives, I believe. Definitely no AAA exclusives announced for the remainder of this year. What is coming? We need to see it. We need a reason to buy the Scorpio. We need to know the price. We need to know how powerful it is. Let's see Microsoft. And how did they do? Is kind of my response to that. They definitely didn't fumble the ball and do terribly, but I don't think they did well. And they had the easiest job of everybody in that all they had to do was wow people with the games, and I don't think that happened. So my first negative here, the Xbox One X, really? That's such a bad name for marketing and everything. I was in the camp that Xbox One Elite was a great name, and I don't like the PS4 Pro as a concept, but the PS4 Pro name makes sense. Do you want a PS4 or a PS4 Pro? The Pro is more powerful. That's very understandable. It's called the Pro. The X and the S are both going to be on shelves next to each other, and they look very similar, and it's going to be very confusing. I don't think that this was the best consumer move, and I think it's because I don't think Xbox believes in this as much as I originally thought that they did. They almost didn't push this enough for me to make me believe in the console, especially when you tag in that $500 price tag that they announced with it. And right now, for a limited time, the Xbox S is $200. So you're looking at a $300 difference for some performance and graphics. And all the games are going to be compatible on both. If you have a game for Xbox One, it will play on either console. So I just don't see how many people could be out there that want the Xbox One X. I just don't fully understand it. And I'm in the same camp with the PlayStation Pro as well. I don't fully understand that, especially if you already have a PS4. Though the PS4 Pro is a lot cheaper than this console. But the name is just terrible. I can't defend that. In fact, they put up a poll, I believe, before the reveal of this, or somebody did. It was Jeff Keighley, I believe, put up a poll before this and had a bunch of names listed for what you thought it would be, and the correct name was one of them, and it had the least amount of votes. So that's not a great sign. Next up, what I did like is they talked about their reveal was better than the PS4 Pro reveal in that they talked about what it does for somebody who doesn't have a 4K TV. That is the mass majority of people. People don't have a 4K TV right now. And they were like, hey, if you don't have a 4K TV, your games are going to look better than ever. The menus are going to be faster. Things are going to be better for you. If you don't have a 4K TV or you're not thinking about getting one soon, this is still a reasonable product for you to buy. And I thought that was great. And that is the angle that I really think Sony should have taken with the Pro and totally messed up. And Microsoft at least touched on that, and I enjoyed that personally. Next up on my minus is their first-party games. What's going on? So I know that they don't have that many studios when compared to some of the other companies, and they have that trinity, right? They have Forza, they have Halo, and they have Gears, and it's kind of a joke at this point. Forza, Halo, Gears, that's all Microsoft has, and we saw the Forza, which isn't very surprising because we get one every year. And Halo announced that they weren't going to be there, which was a little surprising. I think Halo would have been a solid, at least, tease for the Scorpio. And then the Gears obviously just came out recently, so I wouldn't expect any Gears to be at the show. So I was like, okay, well, maybe they have a new first-party IP. No, they don't. And I have a big problem with this. I really think that they, in particular, need something like that. I honestly think a better announcement than Halo 6 is coming out and going, hey, we're the team that made Halo. Today, we're going to show you our new IP that is nothing like Halo. go. Like, I think that that's awesome and a great way to let the studio stretch its legs and possibly make a fantastic game. Like, look at Horizon. Horizon was done by the Killzone team, which the Killzone game started to get stale towards the end there. And then, boom, new IP, Horizon, and guess what? It's fantastic. And I would love if Microsoft would just be like, hey, we made Halo, here's a new game. Hey, we made Gears, here's a new game, etc., etc. So I was disappointed that they didn't have the first-party exclusives. And somebody described this conference as quantity over quality. They said, there's 45 games and 22 of them are exclusive or something like that at the beginning. And that's true. But I don't think many people are excited about 20 of those exclusive and 5 of those games. Like, I just don't see it happening. So anyway, next up, Dragon Ball Z fighting game. That was a big surprise. Now, this, I don't think, helped Microsoft's conference that much, but it was such a surprise to me that I had to put it on the list. It's a back to the roots 2D anime-looking Dragon Ball Z fighting game, and I don't even like Dragon Ball Z very much. I know the show, I know the characters and things, but I don't watch it or anything. I couldn't tell you the story of the show or anything like that. But man, did this fighting game look good, and I'm totally down for that. And I think that was a really cool reveal to maybe get some of the people that Sony has a little excited on the PlayStation side. But as I'm going over this, I'm like, man, a lot of the games they revealed are coming to other consoles. They're coming to, Switch, or they're coming to PlayStation, or they're all on PC. Like, Microsoft really needed to drive home Xbox, play on Xbox, and I don't think they did that. But that Dragon Ball Z fighting game looked pretty sweet. Not gonna lie. I also have, I'll talk about that next week. I think next week we're going to be talking about just overall games that we enjoyed, and we'll probably pick a couple and go in a circle and talk about them. So I'll save one of those for next week. Next up, on the negatives, the scripted multiplayer. So this is, Anthem is really the big one for this, but also Sea of Thieves is there. Like, and I know I just harped on the EA conference for Battlefront and doing exactly this, but I don't want my multiplayer scripted when I watch it. I don't want the route planned out already and all the dialogue is scripted and all this silly stuff. Like, show us what the game is going to be like when I play the game. Destiny did the scripted multiplayer. Every Ubisoft game ever does the scripted multiplayer, and it never gives me any idea of how this game is actually going to play, because people don't play like that online. When you log online, somebody's just making fun of your mom constantly, and there's a kid blasting music. Like, that is the online experience. The online experience is not these very calm gamers that explain everything and tell you, 6 o'clock, and then you turn around and shoot the guy. Like, that's not how it works. So they had Sea of Thieves that was too scripted for me, and then they had the Anthem reveal that was way too scripted for me. And I do want to go on just a small little tangent about Anthem really quick. That game looked amazing. That game looked so beautiful. That game looked too good to be true, and I think it is. I wouldn't get too excited for that game because I know it's a different team. It's BioWare, but it's a different team than the Andromeda stuff. I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about the Watch Dogs effect, the No Man's Sky effect, the Destiny. When they first reveal those things, they seem so, too good to be true, and then they keep showing you and showing you and showing you, and your interest kind of starts petering, and then it hits where it actually is. I think this was an example of that. I think that they showed you, something that it's never, the finished game is never going to play and look like that, and if it does, this is going to be the greatest game ever, because that would be insane, because it's very pretty and looks like it plays very well. Next up in my final Microsoft Plus column is Xbox backwards compatibility with original Xbox. That's awesome. So that wasn't an announcement. I don't know if anybody actually picked the predictions. I'm going to go over the predictions later, but I didn't see this. I saw this coming, but it was more of a joke. Oh yeah, Xbox will make Xbox original games backwards compatible. I didn't actually think that would ever happen, and it happened. They got up. Crimson Skies is going to be backwards compatible, I believe, by the end of the year. This allows them to start giving out free games with gold with original Xbox games, which is pretty sweet. I doubt that they will revive any sort of multiplayer on these games. But if they did, that would be just amazing. But I think if they were going to do something like that, they would have announced it. But yeah, you give me Mechasalt, you give me Mechasalt, you give me Whacked, you give me Stubbs the Zombie, you give me obviously Halo. The Halos and first party games will work. Like, this is awesome. There's nothing negative about this announcement. This is a consumer friendly announcement, and I really, really liked it. And it was the only announcement for the whole show where I went, yeah, and started clapping. I enjoyed this announcement. Overall, I would give Microsoft's conference a C, and some people might think that that's low. They had some interesting games. They showed off Crackdown. I didn't really care for what they showed of Crackdown. I thought all the other Crackdown trailers were better. They showed off Sea of Thieves. That's not a game I have any interest in. They showed off Forza, not a game I have any interest in. And then all of their exclusives and those little indie games that they showed, like, I don't care that much about them. Like, there's ones that I will play, like Tacoma and such, but overall, it wasn't enough to get me excited. I thought the conference was definitely worse than last year. Like, last year, I distinctly remember that We Happy Few trailer. That was so good and got me so excited. And there wasn't anything that did that for me, minus the original Xbox games. And I have my original Xbox hooked up. Like, I can play those games. It's not a big deal. So, overall, I give Microsoft a C. They had the most to prove in this conference, and I think that they definitely missed. They swing and a miss, unfortunately. But after seeing a lot of these conferences, I will say Microsoft's conference wasn't bad. Like, it's about on par with most of them. Moving on to Bethesda. Now, this is very important because Bethesda is a company that I have no interest in. They don't make a single game that I like. I don't like Fallout. I don't like Elder Scrolls. I don't like they just don't make the style games that I like. I played Doom. I thought it was fine. Wolfenstein I think is fine. I'm not a big first-person fan. Things like that. So Bethesda didn't seem to have any shot at exciting me. And oh boy, was I wrong. So first on my negative list, it was short. It was a very short conference that didn't have... that's part of my other thing. It was just a very short conference overall, and I know that that's kind of a weak minus, and a lot of the conferences were a little bit shorter this year than they said, or than previous years, but it was a short conference. But my first plus, they showed off VR games. I'm a big fan of VR, and they showed off Doom in VR, which looks phenomenal, and it is coming out this year, and it is only $30, and it's looking great. I like their idea. Their movement in VR is very tricky to get down, and they have a teleport system, which a lot of games use, except for it seems like it slows down time, so you can aim your teleport and then teleport there, and then time picks back up, and you can do whatever, teleport away. Seems very smart. With how much VR stuff Bethesda's doing, I'm feeling way more and more confident in it, and you might see me getting a little bit excited. One of my favorite announcements in all of this conference is a Bethesda announcement, which is almost embarrassing to me. I'm going to sound like such a hypocrite, but we'll get there when we get there. Also, Fallout 4 VR is another thing. That one is not coming to PlayStation VR. I think it is Vive exclusive. But look cool. If I had a Vive, I would play it. For sure. Next up on the minus is, this was a Nintendo Direct. It was a video. Like, there was almost no reason to have a press conference. They could have just put this entire video online at the same time, and I think it would have been received the same. They had, somebody come out in the beginning and talk for a little bit, and that was really it. It was a lot of just showing one long video that was all theme park related, which I thought was a really cool twist. But it was all one long video that it kept my attention, but I thought it was just weird. Like, what's the point of having an on-stage demo if you're just showing a video? Next up on the plus, lots of 2017 titles. Now, normally I've talked about E3 to me is a time to look to the future, not the present. I know what's coming out this year for the most part. And it's a little bit strange. I feel like Bethesda changed the game, right? They announced Fallout, they released Fallout, and now a lot of companies are trying to do that model. But to me, all that does is you're just not announcing the game earlier. Like, that is the only difference. So you're not making the game faster and releasing it earlier or anything like that. All you're doing is not announcing the game earlier. You're not getting the game press early. That's literally the only difference, and I find that weird. And for these third parties, I kind of like it because they have so many annual releases. Like, yes, it's Assassin's Creed. Yes, it's Call of Duty. Yes, it's, Madden. Yes, all these things. But for things like Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft specifically, I like having this is coming in 3 years, but be excited about it. I like that in a conference. However, since Bethesda is a third party and has so many things going on, I enjoyed that most of their stuff was coming out now, specifically the VR stuff. I was like, holy moly, this is all coming out, very soon. Not to mention, they announced 2 games that are also coming out very soon. However, my next negative, there wasn't a lot for the Bethesda fan, and I was talking about I'm not a big Bethesda fan, but like, Elder Scrolls is such a big thing for them, and they didn't even tease a new Elder Scrolls, which didn't surprise me. I didn't think they were going to, but I thought they might tease something. There's rumors of Starfield being a new exclusive that's like Space Elder Scrolls, and that sounds cool. And their whole theme was space-themed. Same with Sony, which is interesting. But they had a space-themed loading screen, like waiting screen, the please wait for the conference to start. And I was like, oh, maybe they'll throw like a tease in there, similar to what they did with Wolfenstein last year, where Wolfenstein New Colossus showed up on the list really quick and then disappeared. I didn't see anything like that. I didn't see a little nod for the fan. I didn't see just a tease of an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout New Vegas style game, Fallout New Orleans or whatever. So I was disappointed for my fellow Bethesda fans that there was nothing for them to talk about and be excited for like that. And then my final plus, they announced 2 games, both coming out 2 weeks apart, I believe. I think it's October the 13th and October like the 27th or something like that. And that is Wolfenstein and, more importantly to me, The Evil Within 2. The Evil Within 2 looks awesome. I know I said I'm not a big Bethesda fan, but Evil Within is actually a game that I just haven't played that I've been interested in. And 2 cemented that. Like, I might have to play 1 because of this trailer for 2. So psychological, so crazy. I didn't know what was going on 90% of the trailer, but I was enjoying what I was looking at. I was enjoying what was happening, which is going to be something that happens in a later trailer, actually. That's in my plus column as well. Evil Within 2 looked fantastic, and I'll have to see what's coming out around that time and everything, but this might be a day 1 pickup for me. So overall, Bethesda surprised me. Bethesda VR games all coming out soon. Evil Within looked great. It kept my interest the entire time. I thought it was short, but I liked that it was themed with the amusement park theme and everything like that. So I'm giving Bethesda a B-. I actually liked Bethesda's conference a decent amount, coming from a non-Bethesda fan who might be a Bethesda fan very shortly. I might have to take back any negative thing I've ever said. So next up is Ubisoft. And Ubisoft, Aisha Tyler is gone. She's not here, which I thought was going to be in my negative column. But oh boy, did they put on a press conference. They acted like big boys. They did what everybody else does and said, here's some games, maybe someone talks for a little bit. Here's some games, maybe someone talks for a little bit. And they did that, and it was great. So I love the format of this conference. I know I'm supposed to start with my negative because I've been doing that, but I'm starting with the positive. I loved the format of this conference. It was awesome. So good on you guys. And then just to piggyback off of that, I thought it was a little weird that there was no host at all, as I guess a negative, whatever. It was really hard to find negatives for this conference. It was really good. But there was no host for this conference, which is just a little bit strange. Usually somebody comes out and is like, I am the leader of this, and everybody else, whatever, whether it be Sean Layton or Phil Spencer, or, Aisha Tyler usually. They didn't have anybody like that, and I thought that was a little strange. But, man, they tweaked this formula just a little bit, and they have a great press conference going on. I like it a lot. So that's a negative. That's a positive. Let's do another negative, I guess. This is, like I said, I'm grasping at straws for the negatives here. I really enjoyed this press conference. But the Just Dance stuff, they cut it short. It was very short. It wasn't like last year where they were dancing for 15 minutes and there was a giraffe or something. But the dance entertained me, at least the opening dubstep thing, and then it got like the weird J-pop stuff going on, and then it really went downhill. But dancing, Just Dance. We know there's a Just Dance game. A Just Dance game comes out every year. You don't need to do a crazy dance number with a bunch of professional dancers to tell us you have a new Just Dance game. I understand they sell really well, but I think they sell well regardless of your press conferences, Ubisoft. So that's my other negative to this. Now let's talk about a positive. How about Transference? This is a VR experience, so I don't think it is a game, and if it is a game, I think it's just simple choice-based things, but I cannot confirm that. Elijah Wood in it, the Frodo himself, and it started out like an interview, almost just them talking. Yeah, if we did a VR game, this is kind of what we would like. And then like the screen crackles, and then all of a sudden it feels a little weird. It feels a little scripted on purpose. And then their dialogue starts messing up a little bit. There's a little interference. The screen flickers a little bit. Then all of a sudden you're out of the TV that was filming them, and you're into this science lab, and they're doing these experiments, and they're talking about that this VR game is based on an experiment. And then somebody turns on another TV, and they're like, don't be alarmed at what you see. None of this can hurt you. And there's some flickers of what I imagine the game/experience really looks like. And they say, none of this can hurt you, blah, 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 blah. This is a very atmospheric trailer, which is something that I love. And I'm super excited for whatever this is, and I almost don't want to know what it is and just experience it and go into it kind of blind. But they sold me on this. This was awesome. This reminded me of We Happy Few from the Microsoft press conference last year. This was great. Transference, I'm totally down. Next up, on the minus, like I said, just making things up, basically. There was no big Tom Clancy game. It's kind of been a tradition for Ubisoft to always have a new Tom Clancy franchise in their conference, whether it be Rainbow Six Siege, whether it be Ghost Recon Wildlands, The Division. Like, they always seem to announce a Tom Clancy, and they just didn't do it this year. I wanted Splinter Cell. Didn't get Splinter Cell. Was kind of disappointed by that. But what I did get is my final plus, Beyond Good and Evil 2. Oh boy, it's been 14 years since the first one. They teased a second one, and then it went dark. People always ask them, when are you doing Beyond Good and Evil 2? What happened to that? We're still working on it. And then, finally, it is here, or the trailer for it's here. I'll get to that in a minute. I thought it was a fantastic trailer. It reminded me a lot of Blizzard trailers, which are very good, very comical, just great trailer overall. I will say I'm a little bit concerned because they said they joined the Monkey Space Program or whatever it was and be part of helping create this game. And I'm like, helping create this game? How much of this game is made? Is this going to be like a Kingdom Hearts thing where you show the trailer and then a year later you show another trailer and it says now in development, like you just started the game? I'm a little bit confused about where in the timeline this game is down the production pipeline. Is this game halfway done yet? Is this game like just leaving pre-production? Like where are you? I'm very confused on that and very scared. But that cannot be denied. Like I cannot be denied that this did what I like. I am excited for future conferences because of this, because I want to see more from this game. So Beyond Good and Evil 2, arguably the best reveal I've seen, and definitely the best reveal this far into E3. Best reveal I've seen for this E3. I mean, not ever. I've seen better ones. Next up was PlayStation, and I have to put the little asterisk here. PlayStation, I went to see the PlayStation Experience. I went in the movie theater. Was surrounded by friends and family. You can take my rating. Oh, I didn't rate the other one. B+. Ubisoft. Very high rating. Liked Ubisoft's a lot. Arguably my favorite press conference. PlayStation. So yeah, I went to the E3 Experience, watched it in the movie theater, was surrounded by friends and family alike, and that might skew some of these. Everybody was having a good time. It was a very full movie theater, unlike the other times. Everybody laughing, clapping, cheering, things like that. So if any of this seems ridiculous to you who watched it at home and just was like, well, that might be the reason for me. So let's start off with the negatives. Obvious technical issues. what the heck, Sony? You got to get this right. I believe it was the first 2.5 trailers didn't have sound, and I thought that was a movie theater thing. And then I went on Twitter after I got out, and other people were complaining that there was no sound in the movie theater, in the press conference. So it was a press conference thing. That's no good. You can't be doing that. That's like an obvious negative, and that is a blemish on a good press conference. You can't have technical problems like that happening. Some of them are fine, but that is a really big one. That's a big problem. So very obvious negative, but it happened, and so be it. First plus, Shadow of the Colossus, another surprise to me. Apparently, there was a leak an hour before the conference that they trademarked the name. I guess they waited because a few years ago, like The Order and a whole bunch of things got trademarked like a week before E3, and it kind of ruined a lot of the announcements. I didn't see this, so I was super excited. They showed the tower from Shadow, and I was like, it's Shadow of the Colossus. What's this? And then I was assuming that they were going to show something from Ico and then something from Last Guardian. Then maybe this was their new game or something like that. But no, they kept showing Shadow stuff. And then it is a Shadow remake. Like, they're remaking this game. All right, Sony put remaster and Bluepoint put remake. So I'm a little bit confused. But to me, it looks like a remake, and I would love, similar to the Crash Bandicoot ground up remake, where they've added some cool things to it, whether it be like checkpoints that didn't have checkpoints or things like that. I would love if this, maybe gave a controller B option where you change the controls so they're a little more intuitive, because I know a lot of people complain about that. So have the normal controls and have the new controls. And I would love if they were like, add a new Colossus. Like, there's Colossus that have been shown for this game that are not actually in the retail release of the game. Add a new Colossus. I think that might be asking too much, but maybe some cool gameplay tweak, even if it's just a new item or a new way to fight the Colossi. Something like that would be awesome. This was a great surprise to me, and definitely my biggest surprise of the E3 conference, except for my other plus, which I will get to later. Next up, as a minus, their stage show. So last year they did the orchestra, which was awesome because an orchestra works through the screen that you're looking at, right? You can hear the orchestra, you can kind of get it, and you can watch the trailers with the orchestra music. That works. What doesn't work is a stage show where you have to keep zooming the camera out to show that stuff is going on stage. And I'm sure the people that were there, that was awesome. Like the zombies from Days Gone moving when they moved in the game, and the like water pouring down during the Uncharted one, and the multi-screens for the Spider-Man one. I'm sure all that stuff was very cool when you were there. But watching it on a live stream, it's very distracting and kind of annoying that they kept zooming out the camera to show this awesome stage show that I'm sure was really cool, like just one little piece of it. I would have much preferred there just be a still camera there showing the entire stage the entire time on a separate stream. And I'll watch that stream later and check out what it was all about. But as it stands, it was the camera work because of what they did with the stage show that was distracting. Next up, VR titles. Oh my gosh. I did not expect so many VR titles, and as a big advocate of VR, I want almost all of these. So we got the big one, the huge one to me, Skyrim VR. Here's my hypocrite coming out. I don't care about Skyrim, but oh boy, do I want to play it in VR. I think that sounds awesome, assuming that it has polish, and they went through everything and made it make sense for VR, which it looked like they did. I'm hoping it uses the Move controllers, and by the way the bow and arrow was kind of acting, it looked like it might. This is the game that I will definitely play. It seems like it's coming out in November, which is awesome. I have no clue how Sony bribed Bethesda to keep their mouth shut about this at their conference, because that is a pretty big secret to keep. I am totally down for Skyrim VR. I will definitely be getting this, and I'm just super excited for it. On top of that, we also got Moss as a VR game, which was really cool. That's made by some Bungie developers, which is like a third-person game where you're like a rabbit knight, something like that, or some sort of rabbit knight or animal knight. And I love third-person games in VR. It's very hard to explain, but it looks like a toy box brought to life. Basically, if you can imagine playing with action figures, it's like that, except the world around them is moving and alive, and it fixes a big problem in 3D platformers, which is the camera. The camera can't be a problem if you can just look. How far is that jump? I can see. I can judge that jump. Is there something hidden up there? Oh, there is. It's behind me. Let me figure out how to get to that. Like, it works really well. I know that seems strange for people who have PlayStation VR. Go do the Playroom demo. There is a VR Playroom demo that is like a Mario 64 style game, and it is phenomenal. It's really, really good. And I've been waiting for a game to come out that's similar to it, like a full retail thing. There's things like Bound and stuff. There's stuff that's close, but there's nothing that's nailed it. This looks very close. So I'm excited for this. And then there was also a side-scroller in VR, which I'm very excited for. I've been wanting a side-scroller in VR in it as well. Things like that work in VR. I've played Tekken in VR the other week, and it works. It's cool. It works well. Their game modes don't work well for it because it's only practice mode. But the idea of VR, side-scrolling, et cetera, works. And I'm excited to see how they implemented it into the PlayStation VR. So my final minus is, where was the bombshell announcement? Like, Shadow got me excited because I'm a fan of Shadow. And I'm sure there's a lot out there, but people were waiting for their conference last year, right? Their conference last year and the year before, et cetera, were insane. They had the Crash Bandicoot reveal, the God of War reveal is huge, Final Fantasy Remake reveal. They had the Kingdom Hearts 3 reveal a few years ago. They had Shenmue 3. They had like all this stuff, The Last Guardian. They have always had something that people can't shut up about, and I think this year they didn't. I don't think it's their fault that they didn't. I just don't think that they were ready to show any, like, they didn't feel comfortable showing something like that. And it's a little unfortunate because we've come to expect that from Sony now, and you can't be a winner every year. Like, you just, eventually you're going to run out of steam when you're firing on all cylinders every year, right? And I think this is the year that they finally, they're like, Dune, and then finally they're like, duh, they drop down finally after just so many years of just amazing reveals. They finally didn't have Bloodborne 2. They didn't have a new Death Stranding trailer that I got everybody talking. They didn't show off Sucker Punch, the team behind Infamous's new IP. They're working on something. We don't know what it is. Maybe we'll find out at PlayStation Experience. And then my final plus is they're able to work with their third parties to keep them in the format of PlayStation's conference. Destiny 2 got a trailer. I didn't think it was a great trailer, but it got a trailer, and that's it. We didn't get a stage demo for Destiny 2. They didn't talk about it for a super long time like they did Destiny, which was a low point in that conference whenever that happened. Call of Duty just got a trailer. They did that last year too, but it just got a trailer, and I think that that's awesome that they're able to. It almost makes me feel like they're treating their first-party games and third-party games the same. They're like, you get, a trailer, and if you open the show or close the show, you can have like a gameplay bit. But I thought that was neat and shocking. I thought for sure we were going to get the Destiny stuff, but it was more about Destiny for PlayStation. Once again, kind of what Microsoft needed to do. This was, here's our exclusive raid, here's our exclusive gun, here's our exclusive map. This is what PlayStation has to offer you. And Microsoft didn't even do that with, what's that game called? Anthem. Microsoft didn't even get to do that with Anthem. I thought for sure they were going to be like, and the exclusive, this is exclusive to Microsoft for this long. Suck it, Destiny. Like, that's how I read that interaction as, and that is not how it went down. They didn't even bring that up, so very, very interesting. So overall, the PlayStation conference, I have a little, I would give it a B+, but I would give it an A- if you include the pre-show. So this one actually had a pre-show that was an hour long, I believe, where they announced a lot of stuff. They announced Knack 2 is only $40, and its release date is in September. They announced Undertale's coming to PlayStation 4 and Vita and is getting a physical copy. They announced Gran Turismo, fall 2017, and they showed off a bunch of gameplay from that. They announced Superhot's coming to VR. They had all these announcements before the show. Ni no Kuni 2 coming this year, November 10th. Like, those are big announcements, and they were all before the show. So, they're not technically part of the press conference, But if they are included, I would give it an A-, because there were some big bombshell announcements there. Right, I say bombshell, they weren't like bombshell. There were some surprising announcements there that I was super excited about. And I remember I was sitting in the theater watching, and I was like, man, if this is the pre-show, the conference is going to be insane, because they're getting a lot of stuff out of the way. And then it was, the conference was very much, here's the Uncharted, here's the Spider-Man, here's the God of War. Like, here's our big games. And the other thing was, here's our smaller games that you might care about 1 or 2 of, or if you're me, you'll care about like 7 or 8 of. So, Hot Shots Golf, I'm down. Everybody's golf, whatever. So, yeah, overall, PlayStation gets an A- if I include that. All right, and I am back after seeing the Nintendo conference now, and this is kind of what I thought of it. I'll start with the negative, as before. It was way too short. I believe it was a 25-minute runtime, which is shorter than the estimated 30-minute runtime, which I still think is way too short, especially for a Nintendo conference. You just launched a new console this year, and I feel like you should really be embracing that, especially because Nintendo's games are all about gimmicks. Like, not saying that as a dirty word, but their games are all about gimmicks, whether it's Yoshi's Woolly World and everything being made of string, or this new Yoshi where it seems like there's a flip the screen mechanic going on, like flip behind the screen mechanic and things like that. They always have something that, the new hat in Mario, whatever, that makes it so that their game has a central focus, a central gimmick to it. And they didn't go into that on any of their games that they announced. And I thought that was strange, because you could add just a couple minutes to each of these games. You announced Kirby. That's really cool. You announced Yoshi. That's really cool. Like, you had all these things, and I would have liked to spend a little bit more time with all of them. Not to mention that after the show, you announced more things. They're still announcing things as I'm recording this. And it's like, why wasn't that part of your show? The fact that there's they announced a Metroid, but the fact that there is another 2D side-scrolling 3DS Metroid that's coming out in 3 months with amiibos is a pretty big deal. Maybe it should have been at your conference. I don't know. It was just a little bit strange. I thought that the Direct was too short and too fast-paced. On the plus of it, though, there's another Metroid. Metroid Prime 4, which I was not expecting. I thought if they were going to do another Prime, it would be a relaunch of the series. Apparently, it's going to be a continuation. It is not being developed by Retro. It's going to be a different studio working on the game, so I'm interested to see how that goes. But if it's anything like the Crash Bandicoot remaster, they just showed a screen for that when they revealed it, basically. And then over the next year, they revealed the gameplay and everything, and then the game's coming out. So I hope that it's something more like that, where they're like, here's just a screen to get you interested, and then gameplay with release date. Like, I think that is a very good cycle to follow. People are excited by just the name Metroid Prime 4. Unless you have like a new IP, that's very important to show off. Just, having the cachet of just that name works. Man, it's just really hard. This conference was so short, and I sat there after it, and I was like, I don't know what to put in my plus column. I don't know what to put in my minus column. The conference is so short, there's nothing that I'm interested in talking about. Not that they're bad, but I'm trying to not make this all about the games. I'm trying to make it about the conference and the presentation and everything as a whole. And Nintendo didn't give me enough to do that with. So on my next minus, I just have that once again, I would have liked a little more tone pieces from some of the trailers. Maybe CG, like Smash is really good at this. Smash puts out those CG trailers and then they show some gameplay. I would have liked to have that for maybe Kirby or maybe Yoshi, or Fire Emblem had one that was cool, but I don't think they actually showed the gameplay of Fire Emblem. Like, they did a this or that, and maybe it would have been nice to get both going in there. Next up on my minuses, I'm gonna say that Mario Odyssey, though I'm excited for it, doesn't look like Mario 64 to me. Doesn't look like Mario Sunshine to me. They promised that it was in line with those games, but as I watched the gameplay to it afterwards, it looks more like a 3D world. There's a lot of fixed camera angles, and like 64 has some fixed camera angles and things, but there's a lot of fixed camera angles. There's a lot of things that remind me of Mario World, and I don't actually like 3D World very much. There's a lot of things that remind me of Super Mario 3D World in there, and not Super Mario 64, which is the game that they're promising that this is supposed to be like. So I am a little bit worried in that sense. However, my final plus for the Nintendo is none of their games are delayed. Like, Warriors is coming out. Xenoblade is coming out somehow. Mario's not delayed. It's not a 2018 game like I was thinking it was. I think that that's incredible. I think that that's awesome. Zelda, I think, burned people. I believe that game was supposed to come out 2015, if I remember correctly, and it didn't launch until this year. And I don't think that you can do that stuff anymore. I think things like Watch Dogs and even South Park and things are learning. Delaying something is a terrible, once you announce a year, you should hit that year. Once you announce a month, you should hit that month. And once you announce a day, you need to hit that day. And I think that they're learning that, and this seems like Nintendo is following suit, and they're doing that, and that's awesome. So I'm very glad nothing got delayed. So overall, like I said, this conference was way too short for me. It got me excited with things like Metroid and things like, hey, there's a Pokemon game coming, and that's all cool, that's all exciting. But then it was over. Like, it felt like I didn't have time to even process the cool announcements, whereas because it's not a live stage, like Sony fades to black and then there's clapping or cheering and they pause for a minute and maybe they're on stage like feeling that reaction to the thing that they just announced, things like that. Sony or Nintendo can't do that because there's just a video that plays. So I could put that in a negative column, I guess, that there's no that live interaction where they can really feel the hype of what they just announced doesn't happen. They're like, okay, here's a cool announcement, and now Yoshi. Like, it just keeps going. There's no time for pause and appreciation and that break. So overall, I give Nintendo a B-. This was a good conference. I enjoyed it, but like I said, not much to enjoy. It kind of, and it was gone. So yeah, overall, Nintendo, B-. E3 this year, I don't want to say mediocre because it wasn't mediocre, but yeah, it was fine. Like, nobody underachieved. No, I don't think anybody overachieved. I think, unlike the last couple of years where I think everything was kind of like, and then Sony knocked it out of the park, I think this year it was very all across the board. I don't think anybody outdid anyone in any particular category. I'm looking at internet reactions. I see people say Microsoft won. I see people say Ubisoft won. I see people say Sony won. I see people say Nintendo won. I see people say Bethesda won. Like, EA is the only company that I haven't seen people be like, yeah, EA won. And I personally think that EA didn't do the worst. So I don't really want to rank them or anything like that, but I will say, if I had to pick a winner for E3, it comes down to a couple things. Sony has the games I want to play, right? Sony, I don't know how many games they announce, but I'm going to play Shadow, Superhot, Moss, Knack 2, God of War, Spider-Man. Like, these are all games that I'm going to be getting and playing. Whereas, like, Nintendo, I would love to say I'm going to be getting and playing all those games. I'll play Mario Odyssey. Like, Metroid Prime 4, I want to say that I'd play that, but I have not played 1, 2, or 3. Like, and I want to play 1, 2, and 3. I've just never gotten around to it because it's never been that big of a thing to me. So I feel like if we're just going off of who revealed the games that I'm going to play, it was Sony. But if we look at the press conferences as a whole, I would give it to Ubisoft. I think Ubisoft had the surprise reveal that got everybody excited with Beyond Good and Evil 2. Ubisoft had fixed their format. They're definitely the most improved conference, getting rid of Aisha Tyler while unfortunate to some extent. I think it actually worked very well for them. Their conference felt more like a conference. Their format worked of video, talk about it real quick, video, talk about it real quick, video, talk about it real quick. They kept their Just Dance and everything. They learned. They were the Star Wars Battlefront of their conference. They learned from what they did last year, and they seem to have fixed almost everything. They had some fun surprises in there with things like ships and Bones or whatever it was called, the pirate game. I think that's really neat. So, if I were to actually pick a winner, I would give it to Ubisoft for best of E3, winner of E3, game of the year, 2017. I would give it to the Ubisoft. So, congratulations, Ubisoft. Now, I want to go over the predictions that we did from last week's episode of the Press X podcast. I have not tallied these up. I'm going to have to do that here now, but I kind of circled things and put where credit was due. I do want to say that if something was pre-announced, like Assassin's Creed, for example, they were like, Assassin's Creed's going to be at E3, you don't get credit for saying Assassin's Creed is going to be at E3. We know that already, like that you don't get credit for that. So unless it was not officially announced that it was going to be there, you don't get credit for just saying that game is going to show up. So I guess we'll go in order of how we did them, which was starting with Microsoft. I said Scorpio will be announced. It will be $499, and it was coming out in 2017. That is correct. I receive 1 point. Nick said Cuphead will get a release date and a trailer. That is correct. Nick gets 1 point. Kellen said Forza 7, which was already one of those pre-announced games, is coming out in 2018. That is incorrect, so Kellen gets 0 points. I said that Shadow of the Tomb Raider or the next Tomb Raider game would be announced. That didn't happen, surprisingly, actually. I really thought that would happen. Nick said Sea of Thieves, another one of those games that was already announced, would get a release date. That, surprisingly, did not happen. Kellen said Crackdown 3 will get a trailer and is coming out in 2017. That is happening. It's coming out in November. So Kellen gets a point. I said that they're going to do an HD port of old Xbox games such as Blinks. That didn't happen. Nick said they will revive an old Xbox franchise. That also didn't happen. Kellen said State of Decay 2 is coming out in 2017. That didn't happen. State of Decay 2 has been delayed until 2018. Microsoft will reveal 2 VR games. That didn't happen. Nick said Halo spinoff. That also didn't happen. Kellen said they will talk more about the HoloLens. That also didn't happen. We did very poorly this year, by the way, compared to every other predictions that we've ever done. I said that Below will get a release date. That didn't happen. Nick said Forza 7 holiday, VR compatible. Forza 7 is coming out in October, September? It's not really holiday. I didn't mark this one as a point, but I almost want to give 1/3 credit. I'm going to give 1/3 credit on this one. Holiday. It's not really a holiday, though. I don't know. I'm giving 1/3 credit. If he wins by 1/3, he wins by 1/3. Whatever. Who cares? Kellen says that a Marvel exclusive game will be revealed an Xbox exclusive game will be revealed by Marvel for Xbox. Didn't happen. Next up is the third party. So you saw we're not doing too well. Third parties. I said Evil Within 2 will be announced. That happened. That was a very weak prediction, but I got the point. Nick said Assassin's Creed's coming in November. That didn't happen. Kellen said South Park is coming in 2018. That didn't happen, surprisingly. It is coming this year. They're at least sticking by it. I said Wolfenstein will be announced and is coming 2017. That happened. I get a point. Nick said Ghost Recon Wildlands expansion plus release. That didn't happen. Kellen said new BioWare IP will be announced. That happened. Surprisingly. I did not think that was going to happen at all, but Kellen gets a point. I said that a new Splinter Cell game would be revealed. That definitely didn't happen. Nick said Fallout 4 game will be revealed with a release date. Fallout 4 VR would be revealed with a release date. Fallout 4 VR was revealed, but no release date. Half credit. Kellen said CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk game will be revealed. That didn't happen. I said Bethesda will have a retail VR game, and they had Doom, Fallout, and Skyrim VR. So that definitely happened. Nick said Evil Within 2 will be revealed and is coming out October 31st on Halloween. He gets half credit because it is coming out Friday the 13th in October. So close. Half credit. Kellen said Square will will show off their Avengers game. That didn't happen. I said Amy Hennig's Star Wars game will be revealed. That didn't happen. Nick said Beyond Good and Evil 2 will be revealed. Point for Nick. Good job, man. It was crazy. Kellen said new IP by Remedy will be announced and will not be exclusive. That didn't happen. Next up, Sony. We did really bad. Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer would be revealed. I said that. That didn't technically happen. There was a trailer, but it was revealed at an orchestra, and then they released it to the public. It wasn't an E3 thing. It wasn't like I was picturing where they were on stage and kind of make a big deal out of it. It was an it was an orchestra thing that people lumped kind of together with E3. It wasn't actually an E3 reveal. Didn't happen. Nick said Bloodborne 2. Didn't happen, shockingly. Kellen said, I even called the Bloodborne 2 an easy take on the show, and it didn't happen. Kellen said a PSVR bundle will be announced with a new game. That didn't happen. I said that there is a new first-party PSVR game, and that didn't happen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of those games that were revealed were first-party. Nick said Kojima will appear and announce Emma Stone for Death Stranding. That didn't happen. Kellen said a Final Fantasy VII remake trailer, 2018. That didn't happen. I said that game company will reveal their new game on Sony's stage. That didn't happen. Nick said Knack 2's release date is 2018. That didn't happen. Of course, Knack 2, one of those games they said would be there. Kellen said Spyro Collection. That didn't happen. I said Sucker Punch's new IP. That didn't happen. Nick said God of War is coming 2017. That didn't happen. It's coming early 2018. And I said God of War March 2018. That is technically early 2018, but I was specifically thinking they would say March, so I do want to clarify that. Kellen said Ni no Kuni 2 will get a trailer and no release date will be announced. He gets half credit. It got a trailer and there was a release date announced. Now for Nintendo, I said that there will be a Metroid Switch. I didn't actually believe it would happen, but it happened. I get a point. Nick said Pokemon Stars will be revealed. That didn't happen. We got Ultra Moon and Ultra Sun, I believe they were called, earlier before E3, and then at E3 they're like, yeah, we're working on something. So, SNES Classic will be announced, Kellen said. That didn't happen. I said Breath of the Wild DLC will get a date and a price. I get half credit for that. We did see the Breath of the Wild DLC, but the story DLC, which is what I was specifically talking about, did not get a date. Fire Emblem Switch. That didn't happen, Nick. Kellen said Xenoblade 2 will be shown off, and it's not coming this year. Incorrect. It's coming this year. Mario will be delayed until 2018, I said. That didn't happen. Super Smash Bros. Port will be announced, Nick said. That didn't happen. Switch Mario bundle will be announced, said Kellen. That didn't happen. I also said that Smash would be revealed with 2 characters. None of that happened. Nick said Pikmin 4 will be revealed and is coming out 2018. That didn't happen. Kellen said Mario plus Rabbids is coming 2018. Mario plus Rabbids was there. It was not a pre-announced game, so you get half credit. It is coming 2017 in October. The Switch, I said the Switch Virtual Console is coming before July 31st. They didn't even talk about the Virtual Console. Nick said that the Virtual Console is coming in fall. They didn't talk about the Virtual Console. And Kellen said that Skyrim Switch will be coming 2017, and that is true. So, with all things standing and some checking and everything, we will be crowning the belt next week. And according to this, it will be going to, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 points. 5.5 points for 20 predictions, huh? Go me. Nick got 1, 2, 3 points. Jesus, we're terrible. And Kellen got 1, 2, 3, 4 points. So I would win with 5.5. Oh, no, Nick got that 1/3 point. So he got 3 1/3 points. I would win with 5.5 points as it stands. We will check everything. You guys check whatever. And we'll crown the belt next week, assuming all of that. I doubt it'll change that much, but we'll see according to that. I am the champion. I get my belt back that was unrightfully stolen from me earlier in the year by Nick and Kellen because we had a problem where they tied each other and I didn't win. And I was like, I don't know who gets the belt. I didn't think this through. Belt's right here. A letter fell off. I need to fix it. Belt's right here. This is what we fight for. A bunch of grown men fighting for a belt. That's what happens here on the Press X podcast. But as it stands, I will be champion again, and it goes back to its rightful owner. But that is it for this episode of the Press X podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here and watching this. E3 this year, not disappointing, but very average. Very, very average. So you can't have all home runs once in a while. You just need the safe play, and I feel like that was what this was. It was very safe. It was a lot of showing us things that we already knew existed, from the Switch to Sony's games, and then the big one was Microsoft because we didn't know what they had, so they had the chance to blow us out of the water, and then they just didn't do it. They didn't really have anything still. Like, I don't know what you're playing later this year. You get like what? You get Crackdown, which people were lukewarm on, and you get your Forza that you get. I don't know. So yeah, overall, lukewarm E3, but I'm fine with it. I'm still very pleased with it, and it's still my favorite time of the year. So like I said, thank you guys so much for watching this, and I'll speak with you next time.